Nara pressed her face against the cold metal wall and tried to make herself smaller. The other workers walked past her without looking. This was normal. No one ever looked at Nara. The crystal markings on her arms barely glowed. They gave off a weak light that looked like dying stars. Other Valorians had bright, beautiful markings that lit up the dark corridors of the city. Nara's markings made people turn away in disgust. "Move aside, dim one," said Kai, another maintenance worker. His markings glowed with orange light. Even, the lowest workers had brighter markings than Nara. She stepped back and let him pass. Nara picked up her cleaning tools and walked to the next sector. Her job was simple. She cleaned the areas where important Valorians would never go. She fixed broken pipes and replaced old light panels. It was work that no one else wanted to do. The city of Valoria stretched above her in tall spires that reached toward the sky. Beautiful buildings with smooth walls that reflected the light from thousands of bright crystal markings. Nara worked in the basement levels where the ugly machinery lived. She had never been to the upper levels where the bright ones lived. Her own family lived in the middle levels. They were not bright enough for the top, but they were not dim like Nara. Her mother had medium bright green markings. Her father's blue markings were strong and steady. They had other children whose markings were normal. Then they had Nara. Nara remembered the day her markings first appeared. She was 12 years old. All Valorian children waited for this day, with excitement. The markings would show their place in the world. They would show how strong and valuable they were. Her family gathered around her as the first tiny lights appeared on her arms. At first, everyone smiled. Then the smiles faded. The lights were so dim that they could barely be seen. Her mother cried. Her father walked away without saying anything. "Maybe they will get brighter," her mother had said. But 13 years passed and the markings stayed dim. Nara finished cleaning the water recycling room and moved to the power station. The machines here were loud and hot. Sweat made her dim markings look even weaker. She wiped her face and kept working. Tomorrow was her 25th birthday. In Valorian culture, this was an important day. All unmarried Valorians had to find a mate by their 25th birthday. If they could not find someone to choose them, they were sent away from the city to work in the dangerous mining colonies. Nara had never been chosen by anyone. No male Valorian had ever asked to court her. She had tried to approach some of them, but they always walked away when they saw her dim markings. Some laughed at her. Others just looked disgusted. The mining colonies were places where Valorians went to die slowly. The work was hard and dangerous, the air was bad. Most workers died within a few years. It was where the unwanted ones went to disappear. Nara sat down on a metal box and ate her simple lunch. Around her, the machines hummed and clicked. This basement world was the only home she had ever really known. Even her family home felt cold and unwelcoming when she visited. Her younger sister Ryan had found a mate last year. Ryan's markings were a lovely purple color that attracted many suitors. The wedding had been beautiful, with hundreds of guests celebrating. Nara had helped serve food at the back of the room where no one could see her. "At least one of my daughters will bring honor to our family," her mother had said that day. The words cut deep into Nara's heart. A message alert beeped on Nara's work tablet. She read it slowly. The words made her stomach feel sick. "Report to administrative services tomorrow at dawn. Prepare for colony assignment." They were not even waiting for her birthday. The administrators had decided that no one would choose her in the remaining time. They were sending her away early. Nara put her head in her hands. She had always known this day would come, but it still hurt. She would leave Valoria tomorrow and never see it again. She would die alone in some dark mining tunnel on a distant world. A loud noise from the upper levels interrupted her sad thoughts. She heard voices and the sound of many footsteps. This was strange. Important people never came to the basement levels. Nara climbed the stairs to see what was happening. She peeked through a door window and saw something amazing. A group of alien beings walked through the corridors with a crowd of bright-marked Valorians around them. These aliens were different from any species she had ever seen. They were shorter than Valorians, and their skin was a pale color without any markings. They had small eyes and strange hair on their heads. Some had hair that was yellow like sunlight. Others had hair that was dark brown or black. Humans, whispered one of the Valorian guards. The new species from the outer systems. Nara had heard rumors about humans. They were a recently discovered species that had somehow built spaceships and reached the stars. The Galactic Council had made contact with them only months ago. Most Valorians thought humans were primitive and weak, but watching them now, Nara thought they looked interesting. They moved with confidence even though they were surrounded by much larger Valorians. One of the humans was looking around at everything with bright, curious eyes. He seemed excited to see new things. The group moved past Nara's hiding place. Soon the corridor was quiet again. But something had changed inside Nara's mind. For the first time in years, she had seen something that made her forget her own problems. These humans were outsiders just like her. They were different and strange in a world that valued sameness, yet they walked with their heads held high. They did not seem ashamed of being different. Nara returned to the basement and finished her work. Tomorrow she would be sent away from the only home she had ever known. But tonight, she thought about the humans and wondered what it would be like to be confident in a world that did not want you. She did not know that her life was about to change completely. The next morning, Nara did not report to administrative services. Instead, she hid in the basement and waited. If they were going to send her away, she wanted one more day in the city she had always called home. The diplomatic compound had been set up in the middle levels of the city. Nara knew she was not supposed to go there, but she was curious about the humans. Since she would be leaving soon anyway, breaking one more rule did not matter. She found a maintenance tunnel that led near the compound. Through a small window, she could see the humans talking with important Valorians in a large meeting room. The conversation looked formal and boring. Nara was about to leave when she saw one of the humans walk away from the group. He was the same one she had noticed yesterday, the one with curious eyes. He had dark hair and was wearing simple clothes that looked comfortable. The human walked through the corridors looking at everything with great interest. He stopped to examine the wall panels and the lighting systems. He seemed amazed by the Valorian technology. Nara watched him through the window. He moved closer to her hiding place, studying a decorative crystal formation on the wall. She could see his face clearly now. His eyes were warm and kind. When he smiled at something he found interesting, his whole face lit up. The human touched the crystal and it responded with a soft glow. He laughed with delight at this simple interaction. Nara found herself smiling too. When was the last time she had seen someone so happy about something so small? A maintenance panel near the human started beeping. The display showed an error message. The human frowned and tried to read the Valorian writing. He pressed some buttons, but this only made the beeping louder. Nara knew she should stay hidden, but the human looked confused and a little worried. Without thinking, she opened the maintenance hatch and climbed out of the tunnel. "The red button," she said quietly in basic galactic standard. "Press the red button to reset it." The human turned around, surprised to see her. For a moment they stared at each other in silence. Nara felt her face grow hot. She had made a terrible mistake. Now this alien would see her dim markings and be disgusted just like everyone else. But the human did not look disgusted. Instead, he smiled and pressed the red button. The beeping stopped. "Thank you," he said. His voice was gentle and friendly. "I'm June. I don't think we've been introduced." "I'm Nara," she said, barely able to speak. No one had ever thanked her for helping them before. "It's nice to meet you, Nara." June looked at her crystal markings with interest, not disgust. "Those are beautiful. They remind me of distant stars." Nara's mouth fell open. Beautiful? Had he really said her markings were beautiful? "They're too dim," she whispered. "Everyone says they're ugly." "Distant stars are not bright," June said thoughtfully, "but they are constant and lovely in their own way. They guide travelers through the darkness." No one had ever said anything like this to Nara before. She did not know how to respond. "Are you part of the maintenance crew?" June asked. "Yes," Nara said. "I fix things that break." I clean places where important people don't go. That sounds like very important work, June said seriously. Nothing functions properly without good maintenance. Nara stared at him. In Valorian society, maintenance work was considered the lowest form of labor. Only the dim ones did such work. But this human spoke as if her job had real value. Why did you leave the meeting? She asked. June grinned. Meetings are boring. I wanted to see how your people really live. The architecture here is amazing. The way you use crystals for both decoration and function is brilliant. They walked together through the corridor. June asked questions about everything he saw. He wanted to know how the lighting worked, how the air was recycled, how the buildings stayed stable. These were things that Nara knew well from her maintenance work. Your people are very advanced, June said. We humans are still learning how to build ships that can travel between stars. This city must have taken hundreds of years to build. You have starships, Nara pointed out. That means you're advanced too. We're good at some things, June admitted. But we're not as elegant as your people. Our ships are clunky and loud. Our cities are messy and chaotic. Messy sounds interesting, Nara said. She had never been anywhere messy. Valorian society was perfectly ordered, with everyone in their proper place. They reached a viewing platform that looked out over the city. The tall spires stretched up toward the sky, their surfaces gleaming in the sunlight. It was a beautiful sight, but it had always made Nara feel small and unwanted. Magnificent, June said softly. Do you live up there in one of those towers? No, Nara said. I live in the lower levels. Only the bright ones live in the towers. Bright ones? Nara pointed to her dim markings. Valorians with bright crystal markings are considered more valuable. They get the best jobs, the best homes, the best mates. People like me stay in the dark places. June frowned. That seems like a waste. You're intelligent and kind. You know things that those people in the towers probably don't know. It doesn't matter, Nara said sadly. Tomorrow I have to leave the city forever. No one chose me for a mate by my 25th birthday, so I'm being sent to the mining colonies. That's horrible, June said with real anger in his voice. You're going to be punished for other people's blindness? The word blindness surprised Nara. She had never thought of it that way before. They talked until the sun began to set. June told her about human cities with their chaos and noise. He described Earth, where people were valued for many different qualities, not just one physical trait. He talked about human families that stayed together even when members were different from each other. I should go, Nara said finally. If they find me here, there will be trouble. Will I see you again? June asked. Nara shook her head. I'll be gone tomorrow. June looked sad. I wish things were different. Something broke inside Nara's chest. This kind human had treated her like a real person for one afternoon. Soon she would be in the mining colonies alone and forgotten. She would never meet anyone like June again. The words came out before she could stop them. Will you be my husband? The question hung in the air between them. Nara's face turned red. She had asked the most important question in Valorian culture to an alien she had just met. It was crazy and desperate and completely impossible. June's eyes widened with surprise. I don't even know your name. You do know my name? Nara whispered. It's Nara. You're right, June said quietly. I do know your name. June did not laugh at Nara's question. He did not walk away or look disgusted. Instead, he sat down on a nearby bench and was quiet for a long time. Tell me about marriage in your culture, he said finally. Nara sat beside him, her hands shaking. When two Valorians marry, they share their crystal energy. Their markings glow brighter together than they do apart. It creates a bond that lasts for life. They become stronger and more complete. And what happens if someone with dim markings marries someone with bright markings? It never happens, Nara said. The bright ones won't allow it. They say it would make their own markings weaker. June nodded thoughtfully. In human culture, marriage is different. We choose partners based on love, not on physical traits. We believe that two people who care for each other make each other better, regardless of their differences. Love? Nara had heard the word before, but it was not common in Valorian society. Marriages were arranged based on marking brightness and family status. Love is when you care more about someone else's happiness than your own, June explained. It's when someone makes you want to be the best version of yourself. It's when you choose to build a life together. Nara thought about this. I don't know if anyone could love me. I've never brought happiness to anyone. That's not true, June said gently. You made me happy today. You helped me understand things about your city. You shared your knowledge with me. You were kind to a stranger. But I'm being sent away tomorrow. Even if you said yes to my question, it wouldn't matter. The administrators have already decided. June stood up suddenly. Who makes these decisions? The Valorian Council. They rule the city and enforce the laws about marriage and exile. I need to speak with them, June said firmly. No, Nara said, frightened. You're here for diplomatic talks. You can't get involved in internal Valorian matters. It would cause problems between our species. Maybe some problems need to be caused, June said, but he sat back down. Tell me more about these trials. Is there any way to change the council's decision? Nara shook her head. The only way would be if someone formally requested my hand in marriage. But then I would have to prove my worth through the trial of 3 virtues. What are these trials? They test courage, wisdom, and strength. They're designed to show that a Valorian is worthy of marriage and a place in society. But they're very difficult. Most Valorians with bright markings struggle to pass them. Have you ever tried? No one has ever requested my hand in marriage before, Nara said. And the trials are expensive. My family would have to pay for them, and they've made it clear that I'm not worth the cost. June was quiet again, thinking, what if I formally requested your hand in marriage? What if I paid for the trials? Nara's heart began to beat very fast. You would do that, but you barely know me. I know enough, June said. I know you're kind and intelligent. I know you're brave enough to help a stranger and honest enough to show me the real parts of your city. I know you work hard at a job that others look down on. I know you asked me a question that took more courage than most people have. But what if I fail the trials? Then you would be embarrassed, and it would hurt the relationship between humans and Valorians. What if you don't fail? June asked. What if you're stronger than anyone realizes? They talked long into the night. June told Nara about his work studying different alien cultures. He explained that every species had their own ways of deciding who was valuable and who was not. But often, the people that societies rejected were the ones with the most to offer. On Earth, some of our greatest leaders were people who didn't fit in, he said. They saw things differently because they stood outside the normal groups. They found solutions that the accepted people couldn't see. Nara had never thought of her position as an outsider as a strength. To her, it had always been a source of shame and pain. Why would you want to marry me? She asked. You could probably marry anyone you wanted on your homeworld. Because you asked me, June said simply. Because in all my years of studying alien cultures, no one has ever been brave enough to be so honest with me. Because I think you see things that others miss, and I want to learn from you. The next morning, June went to the Valorian Council with his formal request. Nara hid in the basement and waited. She expected to hear that the council had refused and that June had been sent away in disgrace. Instead, June found her in the maintenance tunnels with a big smile on his face. They agreed, he said. You have 3 days to prepare for the trial of 3 virtues. If you pass, we can be married according to both human and Valorian customs. Nara felt dizzy. They agreed? Why? I think they want to see you fail, June said honestly. They probably think this is a good way to prove that dim markings mean a person is worthless. But I don't think you're going to fail. What if I do fail? What happens to you? Then I go back to Earth and spend the rest of my life knowing I met someone extraordinary, June said. But I'd rather spend my life helping that extraordinary person see her own worth. For the next 3 days, June helped Nara prepare for the trials. He taught her human techniques for problem solving and staying calm under pressure. He showed her how to use her knowledge of the city's systems in creative ways. but most importantly, he helped her believe in herself. The trials aren't really about courage, wisdom, and strength, he said on the last night before the trials. They're about knowing who you are and being willing to show the world your true self. What if my true self isn't good enough? Nara asked. Then the world doesn't deserve you, June said. But I think you're going to surprise everyone, including yourself. That night, Nara's crystal markings glowed a little brighter than usual. It was still dim compared to other Valorians, but it was the brightest they had ever been in her life. The trial arena was built in the heart of the city, where all the important Valorians could watch. Nara had never seen so many bright markings in one place. The crystals on their arms and faces blazed like small suns, filling the arena with brilliant light. Nara stood in the center, her dim markings barely visible among all the brightness. She felt small and afraid. Hundreds of eyes stared at her, waiting to see her fail. The council leader, an ancient Valorian named Vex, stepped forward. His markings were the brightest Nara had ever seen, glowing with white gold light. Nara of the dim markings, he announced in a loud voice, you have been challenged to prove your worth through the trial of 3 virtues. If you fail any trial, you will be sent to the mining colonies immediately. If you succeed in all 3, you may marry the human June and remain in the city. Nara nodded. She looked up at the viewing platform where June sat with the other human diplomats. He smiled at her and touched his heart. This gave her strength. The first trial tests courage, Vex announced. You must enter the deep caves and retrieve a fire crystal from the nest of a tunnel serpent. The crystal burns with ancient power, but the serpent guards it fiercely. The crowd murmured with excitement. Tunnel serpents were massive creatures, with poisonous fangs and terrible claws. Most Valorians who faced them used the bright glow of their markings to confuse and frighten the beasts. But Nara's dim markings would provide no such advantage. Nara was given basic protective gear and a small cutting tool. She walked to the entrance of the deep caves, where darkness swallowed everything beyond the first few steps. The caves were cold and damp. Strange sounds echoed from the depths. Nara moved slowly, using her knowledge of building systems to understand the cave structure. Air flowed differently in different passages. Some paths led deeper, others curved back toward the surface. She had spent years working in the dark basement levels of the city. She knew how to move quietly, how to find her way without much light, how to listen for danger. These skills had never seemed valuable before, but now they might save her life. The serpent's nest was deep in the cave system, in a large chamber lit by the glow of fire crystals. The serpent itself was enormous, as long as a city transport, and covered in tough scales. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness. A normal Valorian would charge into the chamber, using their bright markings to blind the serpent while they grabbed a crystal. But Nara was not normal. She was dim and quiet and used to being ignored. She waited at the edge of the chamber, studying the serpent's behavior. It moved in patterns, checking different parts of its nest at regular intervals. When it went to the far side of the chamber, its back was turned to the crystal pile. Nara slipped into the chamber like a shadow. Her dim markings made her nearly invisible in the flickering light. She reached the crystal pile just as the serpent began to turn around. Instead of panicking, Nara grabbed a medium-sized fire crystal and rolled behind a rock formation. The serpent looked around suspiciously but could not see her in the shadows. She waited until the serpent moved away again, then crept back toward the exit. When she emerged from the caves holding the fire crystal, the crowd was silent with surprise. The first trial is complete, Vex announced. Nara has shown courage. The second trial tested wisdom. Vex led Nara to an ancient stone tablet covered with complex symbols and equations. This is the riddle of the founders, he said. It has puzzled our greatest minds for centuries. Solve it, and you pass the second trial. Many brilliant Valorians had tried to solve this riddle. Scholars with the brightest markings had studied it for years without success. Nara stared at the symbols, feeling hopeless. But then she remembered what June had taught her about looking at problems from different perspectives. Instead of trying to read the symbols like everyone else had, She stepped back and looked at the tablet as a whole. The symbols were arranged in a pattern that reminded her of the maintenance diagram she worked with every day. They were not just writing, they were a schematic, a blueprint for something. She traced the lines with her finger, following the flow patterns. The symbols showed how energy moved through a system, how different components connected to each other. It was describing the crystal marking system itself, how the markings worked, what their original purpose had been. "It's not a riddle," she said suddenly. "It's an instruction manual." The markings were never meant to show social status. They were meant to show what kind of work each person was best suited for. Dim markings like mine were for maintenance and support roles, the foundation that keeps everything else working. The crowd gasped. Ancient scholars rushed forward to examine her interpretation. After much discussion, they confirmed that she was correct. "The second trial is complete," Vex said, looking troubled. "Nara has shown wisdom." The third trial tested strength. A massive stone block was placed in the center of the arena. It was 3 times taller than Nara and looked impossibly heavy. "Move this stone from the center of the arena to the edge," Vex commanded. "You have 1 hour." Previous challengers had used brute force, channeling the power of their bright markings to lift or push the stone. But even the strongest Valorians struggled with this trial. Nara walked around the stone, examining it carefully. She knocked on different parts and listened to the sounds. She studied the ground underneath it and the arena walls. Then she knelt down and began digging with her cutting tool. "What is she doing?" someone in the crowd whispered. Nara dug a shallow channel from the stone to the arena wall, creating a slight downward slope. Then she used her cutting tool to chip away at the base of the stone, creating a pivot point. She found a long metal rod in the arena equipment area and positioned it as a lever. Using the physics that June had taught her, she applied pressure at just the right angle. The massive stone tilted slightly. Nara adjusted her lever and pushed again. Slowly, bit by bit, the stone began to roll along the channel she had dug. It took her 55 minutes, but she got the stone to the edge of the arena without using any physical strength at all. The crowd was completely silent. They had never seen anything like this before. "The third trial is complete," Vex announced, his voice filled with amazement. "Nara has shown strength." But something else was happening. As Nara stood in the center of the arena, tired but victorious, her crystal markings began to glow brighter. The dim light grew warmer and steadier, filling her with a feeling she had never experienced before. An elderly Valorian scholar named Ara stepped forward from the crowd. Her ancient markings pulsed with deep purple light. "I have studied the old texts for many years," she said in a voice that carried across the arena. "The founders designed the marking system to guide our society, not to divide it. Each type of marking, bright, medium, or dim, was meant to serve a different purpose. We have forgotten this truth and turned guidance into prejudice." She pointed to Nara. "The dim markings were for those who would maintain our civilization, who would see problems that others missed, who would find solutions through patience and careful thought. We have wasted these gifts by casting out our dim-marked citizens." The arena erupted in shocked conversations. Centuries of tradition were being challenged by what they had witnessed. "Nara has proven her worth," Ara continued. "She has shown that courage comes in many forms, that wisdom is found in understanding rather than memorization, and that strength is about solving problems, not just moving heavy objects." Vex looked around at his fellow council members. They whispered among themselves for several minutes. Finally, he stepped forward. "Nara of the dim markings," he said formally, "you have completed the trial of 3 virtues. You have proven your worth and earned the right to marry according to your choice." Nara looked up at June, who was grinning with pride and joy. She had done it. She had proven that she was not worthless after all, but more than that, she had begun to change how her entire people thought about themselves. The wedding of Nara and June was unlike anything Valoria had ever seen before. Instead of the traditional bright crystal ceremony held in the upper spires, they chose to marry in the middle levels where people from all parts of society could attend. Nara wore a simple dress that let her crystal markings show clearly. They glowed with their new steady light, not bright like the upper-class Valorians, but warm and constant. June wore human ceremonial clothes, but he also carried a small crystal that pulsed in rhythm with Nara's markings. The ceremony blended traditions from both cultures. Valorian crystal binding was combined with human vows of love and partnership. When Nara and June placed their hands together, something beautiful happened. Nara's markings glowed brighter, and the crystal June carried began to emit a soft light that matched hers perfectly. "Two different kinds of beings," said Ara, the elderly scholar who performed the ceremony, "creating something new and beautiful together." The crowd included Valorians from all levels of society. For the first time, dim-marked citizens sat beside bright-marked nobles. Many had come just to see the female who had changed everything with 3 simple trials. Nara's family was there, too. Her mother cried, but these were happy tears. Her father shook June's hand and apologized to Nara for years of coldness. Her sister, Rian, hugged her tightly. "I always knew you were special," Rian whispered. "I just didn't know how to say it." After the wedding, Nara and June were given a new role in Valorian society. They became the first cultural bridge team, helping humans and Valorians understand each other better. Nara found that her years of being an outsider had taught her valuable skills. She could see problems that others missed because she had learned to look at situations from different angles. She understood how it felt to be rejected and ignored, so she could help other outsiders find their place. The first project was establishing a new worker exchange program. Humans would come to Valoria to learn about crystal technology and advanced city planning. Valorians would visit Earth to study human problem-solving methods and social flexibility. "Your people and mine both have things to learn," Nara told the mixed group of humans and Valorians at the first exchange meeting. "Humans are good at accepting differences and finding creative solutions. Valorians are good at building beautiful, efficient systems. Together we can create something better than either species could make alone." The changes in Valorian society came slowly, but steadily. Young Valorians with dim markings began to take pride in their abilities instead of feeling ashamed. They formed study groups and support networks. They shared techniques for maintenance, problem-solving, and careful observation. A dim-marked Valorian named Dal discovered a new method for growing crystals that was more efficient than the old bright-marked techniques. Another dim-marked citizen named Lin designed a better waste recycling system that cleaned the city's air and water. "We never asked them for ideas before," admitted one council member. "We assumed that dim markings meant they had nothing valuable to offer." The bright-marked Valorians also began to change. Instead of looking down on maintenance work, they started to appreciate how complex and important it was. Some even asked dim-marked workers to teach them these skills. "A city is like a living creature," Nara explained to a group of bright-marked engineers. "The beautiful spires are like the head and face that everyone sees. But the maintenance systems are like the heart and lungs. If they stop working, the whole city dies." June adapted well to life on Valoria. He learned to read crystal patterns and helped design new systems that combined human and Valorian technology. He also started a small school where he taught young Valorians about different ways of thinking and problem-solving. "Every species I've studied has something unique to offer," he told his students. "Humans are good at adapting and working together despite differences. Valorians are good at creating beauty and efficiency. But the most important thing any species can do is learn from others." 2 years after the wedding, Nara and June had their first child. The baby was a beautiful blend of both species. She had her mother's crystal markings, but they were a color that had never been seen before. Instead of the traditional blue, green, purple, or gold, the baby's markings were a soft silver that seemed to contain all colors at once. "What does this mean?" asked the medical team, concerned. Ara, now serving as an advisor to new mixed families, smiled at the question. "It means that this child will create her own path in the world. She won't fit into old categories, so she'll have to make new ones." They named the baby Hana, which meant flower in both human and Valorian languages. As she grew, it became clear that she had inherited the best qualities from both species. She was curious and adaptable like her father. But she also had her mother's ability to see patterns and solve technical problems. More importantly, Hana grew up in a world where being different was celebrated instead of punished. Other mixed marriages began to happen. Humans and Valorians who worked together on exchange programs fell in love and started families. Each mixed child was unique, with their own combination of abilities and characteristics. "We're creating a new kind of society," Nara told June one evening, as they watched Hana play with friends from several different species. "Not human, not Valorian, but something that includes the best of everyone." The mining colonies were gradually shut down. Instead of sending unwanted citizens away to die, Valoria created new jobs that made use of everyone's abilities. Dim-marked, Valorians became the foundation of a new technical class that kept the city running smoothly. Nara was eventually elected to the Valorian Council, the first dim-marked citizen ever to hold such a position. Her first act was to establish the Department of Overlooked Potential, which helped citizens find work that matched their abilities rather than their marking brightness. "Every person has something valuable to offer," she said in her acceptance speech. "Our job as leaders is to help them find what that something is." Years later, when Hana was old enough to understand, Nara told her the story of how her parents met. "I was the unwanted one that no one chose," Nara said. "I was going to be sent away forever, but then I met your father and I asked him a question. That changed everything." "What question?" Hana asked, even though she had heard the story many times before. "Will you be my husband?" Nara said with a smile. "It was the bravest thing I ever did, asking that question. And it was the best thing too, because it led to everything good in my life." "What if he had said no?" Hana asked. "Then I would have been sad, but I still would have been brave," Nara replied. "Sometimes the most important thing is not whether you get the answer you want, but whether you're brave enough to ask the question." Hana nodded seriously, then ran off to play with her friends, a group that included humans, Valorians, and children from 3 other species that had joined the growing interstellar community. Nara watched her daughter play and marveled at how much the world had changed. A single question asked by a desperate, unwanted young woman had grown into something that transformed entire civilizations. She looked at her crystal markings, which now glowed with steady silver light, still not bright by old standards, but beautiful in their own way. They had found their proper purpose at last, guiding not just her own path, but helping light the way for others who felt lost and unwanted. In the distance, construction crews were building new spires that would house the growing mixed community. The architecture combined human practicality with Valorian beauty, creating buildings that were both functional and magnificent. It was a good world to raise children in. A world where being different was a gift instead of a curse, where questions were welcome instead of feared, and where love could bloom between any two beings brave enough to reach out to each other. Nara had once been the unwanted one. Now she was the foundation upon which a new kind of civilization was being built. And it all started with a simple question asked at exactly the right moment to exactly the right person.